Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today I want to do a video talking about how we should be building tanks in kind of a philosophical sense. This video is also going to double as a Rampage build guide. I can kind of just put it all together and talk about a build that I've been liking for Rampage, and we're going to dive into some of the tank items and what you should be thinking about, the philosophy behind why you should be buying certain items for tanks, and how you're going to be wanting to buy them and use them. So let's dive into it. So first and foremost, I'm going to kind of build out a Rampage build, and then I'm going to explain it and talk about why you would want to build it this way as opposed to building it a different way. We're going to talk about some of the tank items. So if I was doing tank Rampage, I would absolutely start with Fire Blossom. If there was a scenario where going a Tainted Guard early was necessary, I would pick up Tainted Guard, so you always have to kind of keep that in the pocket. Otherwise, I would probably go something like Crystalline Cuirass or Unbroken Will, depending on if the CC calls for it. So let's say they have a reasonable amount of CC. Most teams do, right? We would go something like Unbroken Will. We would go back towards our armor, like for physical armor, into something like a Stonewall, and then items, 3, 4, or 4, 5, and 6 are a little bit open. I think that personally Citadel is an incredibly strong item right now, so I'm probably going to start filling this into some of my tank builds as well. At 35 physical armor, it actually has more physical armor as a fighter item and has the fortification passive than some of these other actual tank items, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. But something like Citadel, I'm feeling is really, really strong this patch. Elefrost, obviously super good. If you need more magic armor, obviously you could pick up a second magic armor item. Crystalline Cuirass is one of the absolute best magic armor items in the game. It brings you a ton of magic armor. I think it's a really, really good pickup. And then I could build something like Giant's Ring to top it all off. So this is absolutely something like a Rampage build that I would build. And, for the sake of saying, we're going to talk about the crest here in a second. But why these items instead of some of these other items? Like why, right? Like I'm filtered by physical armor. I like to filter by magical armor because I'm talking about truly building tank here. And I'm not even like looking at an item like Overlord or anything. Why these particular items? Why not Elefrost? Why not Fist of Razul? And the purpose in this is that when you're building a tank, if you're truly trying to play the tank role, you want to feel tanky. Now, I think that it's easy to look at these items and say, oh, this is a green frontline item, and this is like or like Citadel, perfect example, is like a brown-orange fighter item. And in your mind, you just kind of let that form into your opinion of what the item actually does. But it's not that simple. You actually have to look at the armor and what the item does. So looking at Fist of Razul, this is a frontline item, but this is very much so like a bruiser item, and it doesn't have any damage on it. So Fist of Razul is 25 physical armor, very, very low armor. Like super, super low armor. Some of the lowest armor you can get outside of support tank items. Support tank items like this, which are not very good in my opinion. Maybe on other characters, I'm not going to look at them in terms of building a tank build. 20 physical armor, 30 physical armor. This has 25. Like Galaxy Greaves literally has more armor than Fist of Razul. We're going to talk about what this item does. 30 physical armor, 35 physical armor, Frosted Lore, 30 physical armor. Again, so Fist of Razul, very, very low armor. Now, Fist of Razul does, for the next 3 seconds, generate stack each second. Upon receiving 5 stacks, empower your next basic attack. You deal 3% of your health bonus magic damage, increased by 2 times on heroes. You heal for 50% of the bonus damage dealt. So, I need to play around with this item more. But if I was going to build this item, I think that I would maybe build it later because you're going to deal a lot of damage from this item, but it's not inherently a very tanky item. It comes with 450 health, that's for sure, but health is not easy or not hard for people to shred through, and it comes with very, very low armor. Let's look at Elefrost. 25 physical armor. It comes with all these other great things, empowers your next basic attack, you're going to deal a lot of damage, you're going to slow someone, but it's not really a tank item. And so what I want you to imagine is a line. I want you to imagine a straight line. On one end, you have like really damage heavy items. On the other hand, you have super tank heavy items. And somewhere like over here in the middle, maybe, that's what some of these items are. Maybe not exactly bruiser items, like something like Basilisk that has health and damage. But somewhere over here, you have items that are like tank bruiser items. They're frontline bruiser items, essentially. And so when it comes to actually building a tank, you need to not accidentally fall into the trap of building too many of these items. And I've seen the opinion that tanks are feeling really weak this patch, and I don't know that I inherently agree. I just think that maybe we're not really building tanks the way that we should. In my opinion, I think that you can maybe get away with like one of these items in a tank build. I'm still experimenting with this. I just really wanted to talk about the philosophy behind it, but this is about what I would expect like a really tanky build to look like. Now let's look at the actual armors and numbers itself. Physical armor, I'm coming up on 200, and that's pre-crest. Magic armor, I'm at 98. Now, we'll talk about the crest option. Sapphire's Mantle, obviously great, infinite health scaling, but Razorback. Razorback will jump us up a little bit of additional armor, so we're going to be over 200 physical armor. You know, we're going to be over 100 magical armor, and you're going to have the active, which is gain 25% physical armor and magical armor for 6 seconds, and then you reflect pre-mitigated damage, which is like whatever. But you actually can gain 25% physical armor and magical armor. Well, if you look at Unbroken Will, Undying, on being immobilized, increase your physical armor by 25% for 2.5 seconds. This is how you build tank. Like, I'm not saying Unbroken Will is exclusively how you build tank, because it really, you know, has a pretty low amount of magical armor. But if they have the CC and you can get this procced, then you can use Unbroken Will and Razorback to be incredibly tanky and to bring that armor value up, you know, while scaling your health with all of these items as well. And sure, you're not doing crazy damage, and, you know, yeah, you're not really bringing that much damage for yourself, so you're going to be a little bit less self-sufficient, but this is how you truly feel tanky. Now, for sure, Rampage, I think, has like a pretty solid bruiser build. I want to mess around with it. I'm probably going to try something like Icecorn Talons, Overlord into Basilisk, into tank items. That will definitely feature a Citadel. And honestly, Citadel, I think this item definitely needs to be looked at again, because this item, I feel like they meant to nerf it, but they didn't. But it's 35 physical power, 200 health, 35 physical armor, and then for each enemy hero that's nearby, you get an additional 5 physical armor. So this is this can be a very, very strong physical armor item, and then you actually reduce their armor by 20% for the enemies that are nearby you. So this item is essentially pen, its damage, its armor, more than some of the tank items, and you know, has a little bit of health on it as well. So in total, like, and I'm not even leveled all the way up, like we could do that real quick. In total, like, I'm bringing myself a lot of stats with this build, and I am absolutely going to feel very tanky. Now, it's the same thing for steel. You know, a lot of the tank builds are very similar. You might have a slightly different option for them, because you're not going to put like Citadel on, say, like Steel or Kwong, or you're not going to put Citadel on like Steel or Kwong or like Richter. And I mean, you could, but you're going to waste the actual stats on it, even though it does bring you quite a bit of armor. So I'm going to be honest, there could be a world where you actually slot this, because I think the item might be good enough. I'm not talking about that just yet. We're going to experiment with that later in the future. But looking at it, you know, scaled up to level 8, or I'm only 17. I'm flubbing, bro. Scaled up to level 18, I'm at 253 physical armor, 122 magical armor, 4,800 health. And, like, yeah, sure, again, I'm not going to do much damage, and I don't really have a lot of haste. That's definitely something that you have to consider, because this particular build doesn't really bring us any haste. So you could build like armor items that have haste if you wanted to focus on that, because haste is, admittedly, haste is very, very good for Rampage. So, you know, obviously you would get 10 haste if you built a tainted. So keep that in mind if you needed a tainted. That would bring you a little bit of haste. Void Helm, also not terrible for Rampage at all, because of the healing that it could bring. That could bring him a little bit of haste. But even Void Helm, 25 magic armor, very, very low amount of magic armor. So, you know, the trade-off is that you're doing less in the form of spamming abilities and dishing out damage, but you're doing far more in the way of actually being tanky. So I kind of wanted to make a video talking about this. This very much so realistically is a build that you're probably gonna see me run. I think it's going to be something like that in this order. It's really just dependent. Like, when it comes to full tank builds and tank items in general, you build them in the order that you need them. Now, you know, in this scenario, I'm obviously going to build Fire Blossom first. Item number 2, like, honestly, I might build Citadel. If I feel like the game's going well, I might build Citadel item number 2. Then, you know, if I need magic armor, and if they don't have a ton of CC, I'll throw Crystalline Cuirass third, and then I'll get Stonewall fourth. And, you know, Giant's Ring, really solid item, I think, to bring into the build at some point, because you can bring an additional 5% damage mitigation. I think double tainted as a concept as well. I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Double tainted, I think, is still good, but I'm not exactly sure how good it is, because they actually nerfed the Colossus mitigation passive. So it used to be mitigate 5% doubled by against blighted targets. Now it's 3%. So you can get a total of like 6% mitigation if you run double tainted, but I'm not sure that it's really super worth doing. It's hard for me to tell. It's hard for me to tell if having like a lower magic armor item at 30 magic armor running double tainted is better than just running something like Unbroken Will and Crystalline Cuirass, because idealistically you're not going to run all three of those. And Unbroken Will brings you a ton of armor and is, brings the same magical armor. So I think that Unbroken Will probably just takes over this item. So Tainted Bastion is like just if you need it, whereas Crystalline Cuirass and Unbroken Will are probably much more consistent. So friends, that's some philosophy talk about how to build tanks right now. I would love to hear your thoughts. Again, like, you really could take this 6-slot build it how you need it. Start with Fire Blossom, go Razorback, because Razorback is going to increase your armors by 25% for 6 seconds. Like, it's going to increase your physical armor and magic armor by 25% for 6 seconds. Unbroken Will is going to increase your physical armor by 25% for 2.5 seconds, your magic armor by 25% for 2.5 seconds. I have to assume this is additive as well. I don't think you're going to spike up in armor like a ton, but still, you can get very tanky with this. You can provide your team a lot of time. Like, you can stand in the front line, take a lot of damage. It's still going to feel like you're getting blown up, I promise you. But you're going to, what happens whenever I play this build is you're going to dive into a fight, you're going to feel like you're getting blown up, but all of that damage is directed at you. When you jump out of the fight, or if you do die in the fight, your teammates should be very healthy. Your teammates should be very, very healthy. So if it does still feel like you're getting blown up, it's probably because you are, but that means that they used a lot of resources to do it. So friends, power of actually being a tank is out there. Drop a like on the video, subscribe for future Predecessor content. I would love to hear your thoughts. As always, be sure to be kind of low. Tell someone you love them, and I'll see you in the next video.